Carbon Lock, How They're Shrinking Your World. Episode 2 of 10, the series that exposes what's coming. Your world is getting smaller, not by accident, but by design. Governments, corporations, and global elites are rolling out new systems of control, all under the name of climate action. They claim these changes are about saving the planet, but when you look closer, you'll see it's about something much bigger. Your movement, your consumption, and even your daily choices are being monitored, capped, and controlled. Carbon credit systems are appearing worldwide, limiting how much energy you can use, how far you can travel, and even what food you can buy. Digital tracking systems are recording your personal emissions, logging your habits, and linking them to financial incentives or punishments. They call it sustainability. They say it's about reducing pollution. But while you're being forced to cut back, the same people pushing these policies are still flying private jets, living in massive mansions, and consuming more resources than entire small towns. This isn't speculation, it's happening right now. Across Europe, new regulations are rolling out under the European Green Deal. France has banned short-haul domestic flights, forcing people onto government-controlled rail networks. Finland has tested personal carbon trading, where citizens are given a carbon allowance, rewarding those who comply and penalizing those who don't. In the UK, ULEZ zones, ultra-low emission zones, are expanding, charging drivers based on their vehicle's emissions. But this isn't just about making cars more expensive. Some cities are already testing 15-minute zones, areas where people are restricted from driving beyond their immediate neighborhood unless they get permission. It sounds convenient. Everything you need is within walking distance. Cleaner air, fewer cars, better public spaces. But is it really a choice? Or is this a step toward a future where travel is a privilege, not a right? Governments and corporations are using carbon tracking and emissions monitoring to reshape society. At first, they introduced these systems as optional. They offer rewards for compliance, discounts, tax breaks, and access to certain services. But over time, these incentives turn into requirements. We've seen it before. Systems that start as voluntary often become mandatory. Digital payments were once optional, now cash is being phased out. ID cards were once just for passports, now they're required for more and more services. It always starts with a choice, until there is no choice left. Imagine a world where every action you take is assigned a carbon score. Your travel, your purchases, and even the food you eat could be logged and ranked. If you go over your limit, your spending is blocked. If you try to drive outside your permitted area, your vehicle is flagged. Some people will say, that would never happen. But in China, personal carbon tracking already exists. In Italy, banks are piloting credit cards that automatically block spending once you exceed your monthly carbon allowance. The European Union's Digital Identity project will soon link personal identification with financial and environmental tracking. Step by step, these systems are being built, tested, and normalized. They say it's for the good of the planet. But why aren't the elites following the same rules? If carbon tracking was really about stopping pollution, why do the richest 1%, the ones who consume the most, get to buy their way out with carbon offsets? Why do politicians pushing these restrictions still take private jets to climate summits? Why do billionaires own multiple super mansions while telling you to live in a pod and stop driving? The truth is, carbon control isn't about the environment, it's about control. Imagine a world where you can no longer make decisions for yourself. The food you buy is dictated by your carbon score. If you eat too much red meat, your allowance runs out. If you drive too far, your account is restricted. If you travel beyond your permitted zone, cameras flag your movement, and your bank reduces your spending power. Right now, these systems are being introduced as policies, but what happens when they are enforced with programmable money? If CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, replace cash, governments and banks will have complete control over financial access. Want to buy more fuel than your monthly limit? Your digital wallet won't allow the transaction. Want to book a holiday flight? Your carbon score says no. In Canada, financial punishment is already a tool of enforcement. When truckers protested lockdown mandates in 2022, the government froze their bank accounts, blocked financial donations, and restricted access to funds, all without trial. Imagine that level of control applied to every aspect of your life. The elites pushing these restrictions will always have loopholes. Their own land, private transportation, and exclusive food sources. They'll pay for carbon offsets while the rest of the world is forced to comply with limits. Once you accept the system, once you're reliant on CBDCs, digital IDs, and carbon tracking, there is no opting out. You become dependent. You become controlled. So what can you do? How do you push back against a system designed to shrink your world? The first step is to stay independent for as long as possible. Use cash where you can. Every digital transaction feeds the system that tracks and ranks your behavior. Travel while you still have the freedom to. As restrictions increase, choices will become more limited. The more people accept restricted movement zones, the easier it will be for governments to enforce them. Support independent businesses and local economies. The more you rely on corporate supply chains, the more vulnerable you become to rationing and pricing controls. Stay informed. The biggest weapon the system has is compliance through ignorance. When people understand the end goal of carbon tracking, digital IDs, and financial restrictions, they are more likely to resist. The system only works if enough people accept it. But history has shown that when people push back, governments are forced to retreat. They are already building the infrastructure for a future where movement, spending, and consumption are fully controlled. The question is, will you accept it? This is just the beginning. Like, follow, and subscribe to stay updated. Don't miss episode 3, Bug Bite, Your Food's Turning Weird. It's time to see the bigger picture.